Real manipulators don't scream, they whisper silence. They didn't hit you, they didn't scream, they didn't even raise their voice. But somehow, you stopped speaking, you started shrinking, you forgot how to trust your own memory, your own feelings, your own voice. And the worst part, you thought it was your fault. This isn't the kind of abuse that leaves bruises. It leaves confusion. It doesn't shout. It whispers. Whispers so soft, so well-timed, so calculated, they bypass your logic and go straight for your survival system. There's a part of your brain that's ancient, primal, older than language. That's the part they reach, like an emotional dinosaur living inside you, waiting to be awakened, and every whisper feeds it. Revelation 1, the first whisper, the first tremble. It didn't begin with chaos. It began with quiet, a single sentence, barely louder than a breath, the kind of moment that feels insignificant until you replay it 1,000 times in your head, searching for clues you missed. I never said that. 4 simple words. But they land like a meteorite in the calm landscape of your certainty. You blink, confused. Your memory feels solid, real, but suddenly it's been declared fiction by the person who was standing right there with you. Maybe you misheard. Maybe you're being sensitive. Maybe you're having one of those moments where your brain plays tricks on you. The ground doesn't shake, but something inside you shifts, ever so slightly. You feel it, but you can't name it. Like a pebble thrown into still water, the ripples are subtle but far-reaching, disturbing the peace you didn't know you were about to lose. That's the first whisper, not a slap, not a scream, just a nudge, pushing you away from your truth. And like the first tremor before an earthquake, it sets everything in motion. Your certainty cracks. Your memory becomes suspect. Your reality becomes negotiable. What was once solid ground becomes quicksand, and you don't even realize you're sinking. Revelation 2, when the dinosaur awakens. There's a moment, often quiet, often unnoticed, when your body reacts before your mind catches up. Your chest tightens, your shoulders lift, your breath shortens. You're not in danger, but you feel hunted. Your palms dampen, your throat constricts. Something primal stirs, like a sleeping giant opening one ancient eye. That's not paranoia, that's your dinosaur waking up. The emotional reptile within you, born from ancient trauma, now stirred by a whisper. Not to protect you, but to make sure you survive, even if it means betraying yourself. This ancient part of your brain doesn't understand modern relationships, doesn't comprehend complex emotions, doesn't know about healthy communication. It only knows predator and prey, safety and threat, fight or flight or freeze. Think about it. When your ancestors heard a twig snap in the forest, they didn't stop to analyze whether it was wind or predator. They reacted, their bodies flooded with chemicals designed to keep them alive. Fast heartbeat, heightened senses, muscles ready to run or hide. That same system is still inside you, unchanged by thousands of years of evolution. The human brain is a miracle of evolution, but part of it, the amygdala, the oldest part, doesn't know the difference between emotional manipulation and physical attack. It sees a gaslighter's whisper the way it once saw a predator's shadow, as a threat to survival. Your nervous system floods with the same chemicals your ancestors felt when hiding from saber-toothed tigers. And when it awakens, it doesn't roar to fight. It roars to freeze, to obey, to apologize before harm arrives, to forget your truth so you can be safe. The dinosaur teaches you that your voice is dangerous, your memories are faulty, your feelings are weapons that could destroy everything you hold dear. It whispers its ancient wisdom: stay small, stay quiet, stay alive. But here's what the dinosaur doesn't understand. The predator isn't outside anymore. They're sitting across from you at dinner, asking why you look upset, telling you that you're imagining things, offering to help you work through your trust issues. Revelation 3, the fossil of self-doubt. By the time you question yourself, it's already begun. You stand at the edge of your own memory, looking down into the chasm of uncertainty, unsure if what you remember is real or rewritten. The landscape of your past becomes foreign, untrustworthy, like a familiar road suddenly full of detours you don't remember taking. And the most terrifying part? You can't trace when it started. Like carbon dating emotional damage, you search for the moment your certainty died, but find only layers of accumulated doubt, sediment of confusion deposited one grain at a time. It's like waking up in a house you've lived in for years, only to find that someone has moved all the furniture while you slept. Everything looks almost right, but nothing feels quite the same. The couch is 3 inches to the left. The pictures are hung at slightly different angles. And when you mention it, everyone looks at you like you're losing your mind. That's the mark of the whisper. It doesn't replace your reality in one loud moment. It etches over it slowly, like time fossilizing a leaf. Layer by layer, season by season, until what once felt alive becomes something cold, buried, and fragile. Your memories become archaeological sites, requiring careful excavation to determine what's authentic and what's been planted there by someone else's narrative. Self-doubt isn't born, it's installed, often by someone you trusted, someone who held your emotional safety in their hands and used it as leverage, and it doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It slips into your thinking like sand into a wound, so gradually you don't notice until the infection spreads, until every thought becomes tinged with uncertainty. You say, "I think we agreed on this," and they say, "No, you're wrong. We never talked about that." Just once, it's frustrating. Twice, it's confusing. By the 10th time, you start recording conversations in your head, replaying them at night like a detective reviewing evidence, wondering if maybe they're right. Maybe your memory is the unreliable witness. Maybe you're the problem that needs solving. You begin to doubt not just specific memories, but your entire capacity to perceive reality accurately. If you can't trust your own mind to record a simple conversation, how can you trust it to navigate life? The gaslighter doesn't just steal your past, they steal your confidence in your future. Revelation 4, the whisper with claws. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like love, like concern wrapped in velvet, like criticism dipped in honey. "I'm just trying to help you. I'm only saying this because I care. You know I would never hurt you intentionally. I hate seeing you struggle like this." The words arrive like gifts, beautifully packaged, but when you unwrap them, you find something sharp inside. Every sentence leaves a scratch, not deep enough to bleed, not obvious enough to show others. Just enough to sting and stay, like paper cuts on your soul, barely visible but persistently painful, a constant reminder of something being wrong. That's the genius of manipulation cloaked in kindness. The whisper doesn't bite, it strokes, and while you're lulled by the touch, the claws dig in. The packaging is so beautiful you don't notice the poison inside until you've already swallowed it, until it's coursing through your emotional bloodstream. Watch how it works. They don't say, "You're stupid." They say, "I'm worried about how others might perceive your ideas." They don't say, "You're ugly." They say, "You'd be so beautiful if you just tried a little harder." They don't say, "You're weak." They say, "I wish I could help you be stronger." The most effective gaslighters don't raise their voice. They raise your doubt. They weaponize empathy, not rage. They use your compassion against you, your desire to be understanding as the rope that binds you, your capacity for love as the key to your own prison. Because when cruelty looks like care, you don't defend yourself. You lean in, you listen harder, you try to fix yourself so they'll be happy again. It's not fear that keeps you there, it's hope. Hope that if you just become easier, quieter, more agreeable, the warmth will return. Hope that somewhere beneath their corrections and criticisms is the person who once made you feel safe, valued, seen. You become addicted to glimpses of their former kindness, like a gambler chasing the memory of winning, pulling the lever again and again, certain that this time will be different. They create the wound and then offer to be the bandage, never mentioning that they're the reason you're bleeding in the first place. Revelation 5. Apologizing to survive. You used to speak freely, laugh without checking the room first, share your thoughts without flinching at the possible consequences. But now, every word passes through a filter. Every emotion must be softened, sanitized, served with a side of self-deprecation and a generous helping of doubt. And when something feels off, when you're blamed, dismissed, or shamed, your first instinct is no longer to question it, to push back, to stand your ground. It's to apologize, just to keep the peace, just to make it stop, just to survive another day without conflict, without the cold shoulder, without the subtle punishment that follows whenever you dare to disagree. "I'm sorry I misunderstood. I'm sorry for being sensitive. I'm sorry for bringing it up. I'm sorry for existing in a way that makes you uncomfortable." That's how gaslighting rewires you. It replaces curiosity with caution, reaction with retreat. You begin to say, "I'm sorry," not because you believe you were wrong, but because it's the only thing that temporarily soothes the predator you think is love. Your apologies become preemptive strikes against imagined offenses, shields raised against attacks that haven't happened yet but feel inevitable. The dinosaur stirs, not to protect you, but to warn you. Don't push back, don't escalate, don't wake the storm. It whispers its own lies. Peace at any price, harmony over truth, safety through surrender. And so, you learn to apologize for the space you take up, for the air you breathe, for the audacity of having feelings that don't match their narrative. You apologize for your tone before you've even spoken. You apologize for taking up space, for having needs, for existing too loudly in their carefully controlled world. And slowly, the word sorry loses all meaning except this. Please don't leave. Please don't withdraw your love. Please don't make me feel invisible. The cruelest part? They accept your apologies with grace, with magnanimity, like they're doing you a favor by forgiving you for crimes you didn't commit. And you're grateful. Grateful to be forgiven for being yourself. Grateful that they still love you despite your obvious flaws. Grateful that they're patient enough to keep correcting you when you inevitably mess up again. You become a professional apologizer, fluent in the language of preemptive submission, an expert at taking responsibility for things that were never your fault to begin with. Revelation 6, the echo cage. At first, it's just their voice, their correction, their denial. But then, something eerie begins to happen. You start repeating them, not out loud, but inside your own head. Their phrases become your internal soundtrack. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I misunderstood again. Maybe I do remember it wrong. Maybe I'm the toxic one. That's not your intuition talking. That's the echo, and the cage it creates is invisible, soundproof, and made entirely of their words disguised as your own thoughts. You've become a ventriloquist's dummy, but the puppet believes it's speaking freely. Gaslighting isn't content with rewriting the moment. It aims to rewrite your mind, and it doesn't need to control you physically. All it needs is to echo enough times that you begin narrating your life with their distortions. Their voice becomes the narrator of your story, the judge of your character, the editor of your reality. It's not manipulation anymore. It's internalization. Their skepticism becomes your self-doubt. Their critiques become your inner critic. Their version of you becomes more real than your actual self. You start seeing yourself through their eyes, and somehow you always come up lacking. Revelation 7, erased by kindness. They never called you names, never shouted in your face, never threatened to leave. In fact, they were kind, gentle, smiled often, told you how much they loved you, brought you flowers while planting seeds of doubt. And that's what made it so hard to see. Because while their words caressed, their actions erased. Not in grand, obvious ways, but in subtle strokes. A correction here, a joke at your expense there, a suggestion, a critique, a helpful note, until little by little, you vanished. Death by 1,000 cuts, but each cut delivered with a smile. Kindness, used not to nurture you, but to soften your resistance, to lower your guard while they rewrote your reality. Love as anesthesia while they performed surgery on your sense of self. This is the most deceptive form of gaslighting, the one wrapped in warmth, the kind that makes others say, they're such a good person. The kind that makes you say it, even as you feel yourself shrinking. Even as you wonder why you feel so empty in the presence of someone so caring. You can't point to bruises. You can't play recordings of screaming. All you have is a growing sense that something is wrong and their gentle voice reminding you that you're imagining things. Revelation 8, the prehistoric silence. You expect danger to be loud. You expect harm to arrive with flashing lights, clenched fists, or cruel words. But when it comes to emotional abuse, silence can be just as violent and far more confusing. Silence that punishes, silence that isolates, silence that freezes you in place, waiting, hoping, shrinking. The kind of silence that feels like abandonment, like death, like disappearing into nothingness. And what's worse, your nervous system recognizes it, not as peace, but as threat. Your body knows what your mind tries to rationalize away. When someone gives you the cold shoulder, withdraws affection, stops answering, or simply looks at you with wordless disappointment, you might think you're just overreacting. But your body doesn't think. It remembers. It remembers when silence meant predators were near, when abandonment meant death. Silence, to your primitive brain, means abandonment, and abandonment once meant death. So your dinosaur awakens, flooding you with panic, desperate to do whatever it takes to restore connection, even if that connection is toxic. The silent treatment becomes a weapon more powerful than words, because it makes you fill the silence with your own fears, your own worst assumptions about yourself. You become both prisoner and guard in your own isolation. Revelation 9, the myth of overreaction. You're overreacting. 3 words, whispered calmly. No anger, no drama. Just enough to knock the air out of your truth. Like a judge's gavel, it closes the case on your feelings before you've even made your argument. Before you've been allowed to present evidence for your own emotional experience. You came with feelings, and they came with judgment. And just like that, your reaction becomes the problem, not what caused it. You begin to question your sensitivity, your sanity, your story. The crime becomes the response to the crime. The issue becomes your inability to handle the issue properly. But here's what they don't tell you. There's no such thing as overreacting. There's only reacting to something you're not supposed to react to. There's only feeling too much in a space designed for your emotional silence. When someone tells you you're overreacting, they're really saying, your feelings are inconvenient to me. Your emotional response makes me uncomfortable. I need you to feel less so I can continue doing what I'm doing without consequences. You shrink your emotions down to fit their comfort, not because you believe them, but because it's safer than being dismissed again, safer than being labeled as dramatic or difficult or impossible to please. You learn to feel in whispers, to need in silence, to hurt invisibly. This is one of gaslighting's most sinister tactics, reframing your emotional reality as exaggerated, dramatic, or broken. The result? You abandon yourself to preserve the relationship. You become emotionally homeless in your own life, always seeking permission to feel what you feel, always apologizing for the intensity of your own experience. Your tears become melodrama. Your anger becomes instability. Your boundaries become walls. Your requests become demands. Your needs become neediness. And slowly, you stop trusting the very instruments designed to guide you through life, your emotions. But what if you're not overreacting? What if you're having a perfectly normal response to an abnormal situation? What if your emotions are trying to tell you something important, and someone else is trying to turn down the volume so you can't hear the message? Revelation 10, the invisible predator. It doesn't growl. It doesn't chase you through the woods. It smiles, it hugs, it texts "good night" with a heart emoji. And yet, you feel hunted. Your body knows what your mind refuses to acknowledge. That's the horror of emotional predators. They don't come with fangs. They come with charm, with flowers and compliments and promises. They don't look like monsters. They look like saviors. The gaslighter isn't always cruel. Sometimes they're your best friend, your partner, your mentor, someone you trust, someone others admire. And that's what makes them dangerous, because they're invisible until it's too late. They hunt with kindness, capture with care, and devour with love. This kind of predator doesn't attack your body. They colonize your mind. They don't steal your possessions. They steal your ability to trust yourself. They rewrite your memories, plant seeds of confusion, question your tone, your choices, your reactions. And when you confront them, they smile. You're imagining things. I'm just trying to help. Why are you being so hostile? Their weapons are questions that make you question everything about yourself. Revelation 11, the Paleontology of pain. Some people dig for treasure, others dig for truth, but survivors of gaslighting dig for something much older, the forgotten bones of their own reality. They become archaeologists of their own experience, carefully brushing away layers of lies to find fragments of what actually happened. Every time you question your feelings, every time you rewind a memory that doesn't match what they said happened, you're not being dramatic. You're being an emotional paleontologist, excavating the buried fragments of who you were before the whisper began. Gaslighting doesn't just distort the present, it buries the past. You start to wonder, did I really say that? Did it really happen the way I remember? Was I always this difficult? Was I always this broken? The gaslighter becomes the curator of your personal history, deciding which memories are real and which are misunderstandings. And so, your healing becomes an archaeological project. Layer by layer, lie by lie, you dig. And what you find isn't rage, it's grief for the moments you abandoned yourself because someone else insisted their version of you was more accurate than your own lived experience. You grieve for the voice you silenced, the boundaries you erased, the truth you buried alive. Revelation 12, the Museum of Emotional Bones. You've been collecting them for years, little artifacts of doubt, confusion, and contradiction. A screenshot here, a voicemail there, journal entries, text messages, timestamps and witnesses and proof. Digital breadcrumbs that lead back to moments when you knew something was wrong but couldn't quite name it. You saved them not to prove something to others, but to prove something to yourself. To prove you're not going insane. To prove that you were there, that you witnessed what you witnessed, that your experience was real, even if someone else insists it wasn't. Because after so many whispers, so many, "I never said that," or "you misunderstood," you begin to lose the thread of what's real. So you build a museum, a private one, full of emotional bones that remind you you're not crazy. It happened. You were there. Your memory isn't broken. This is one of the least talked about phases of gaslighting recovery. Evidence hoarding. You don't even realize you're doing it at first. You just start saving things. You write down conversations immediately after they happen. You record your thoughts right after an argument. You screenshot texts before they can be deleted or denied. You ask friends what they remember about conversations you all had together. Not because you're paranoid, but because you've learned that your memory is no longer a safe place. It's been contaminated, corrupted, made unreliable by someone who benefits from your confusion. When someone repeatedly tells you that your version of events is wrong, you start to doubt your basic capacity to perceive reality. Your phone becomes a vault of truth. Your journal becomes a witness. Your friends become character references for your own sanity. Because when someone steals your ability to trust yourself, you need external validation that you exist, that your experience is real, that you're not the unreliable narrator of your own life. You become an emotional archaeologist, carefully cataloging evidence of your own existence, building a case for your right to trust your own perceptions. Each saved message, each dated journal entry, each time-stamped recording becomes proof that you were there, that you saw what you saw, that you felt what you felt. And sometimes, late at night, you scroll through your collection, not because you enjoy reliving the pain, but because you need to remember that your truth has substance, has history, has weight that can't be whispered away. Revelation 13, the Gaslight Nest. It begins with love, or what feels like love, warmth, affection, intimacy. You feel seen, cherished even, but slowly the warmth becomes conditional. The affection becomes unpredictable. The love comes with fine print you didn't know you signed. And the nest you thought was safe begins to shift into something else entirely. A place where your thoughts are questioned, your feelings minimized, and your voice softened until it disappears. That's the gaslight nest, the space you help build, thinking it's home, only to realize it's a cage. But the bars are invisible, made of loyalty and hope, and the promise that things will get better if you just try harder. Gaslighters don't construct this nest alone. They make you a participant, not out of malice, but through manipulation. They teach you how to twist twigs of blame, feathers of self-doubt, and bits of conditional affection into a place you think is shelter. You help build your own prison, thread by thread, compromise by compromise. You mistake the cage for love because it's decorated with memories of when they were kind, when they made you feel special, when they convinced you that you were the only one who truly understood them. Revelation 14, becoming the whisperer. At some point, something strange happens. The gaslighter doesn't even need to say the words anymore, because you've started saying them to yourself. Their voice has moved in, taken up residence in your head, and now it echoes in your own tone. Maybe I did overreact. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the problem. And just like that, you've become the whisperer. Their work is complete. They've successfully outsourced their manipulation to your own inner voice. That's the cruel genius of gaslighting. It teaches you to do the work for them. You become your own oppressor, your own critic, your own jailer. They plant the seeds, but you water them with your own self-doubt. This isn't weakness. This isn't foolishness. This is adaptation. You internalize their whispers as a way to keep the peace, to avoid the tension, to prevent the withdrawal or the emotional punishment you've come to expect. You'd rather hurt yourself than risk them hurting you worse. But now the gaslighter is inside the house of your mind, rearranging furniture, repainting walls, making themselves at home in the sacred space that should belong only to you. Revelation 15, the voice that went missing. It doesn't happen all at once. One day, you speak up and get shut down. Another day, you share a feeling and they say you're too much. You laugh less, share less, question more, take up less space, make less noise, need less attention. Until one day, you go to say something and there's nothing there. The words that used to flow freely now feel stuck, wrong, dangerous. Not because you're empty, but because your voice has gone missing, disappeared beneath years of whisper-fed silence, not stolen, surrendered, given up in pieces each time you chose peace over truth, harmony over authenticity. This is the final phase of emotional erosion, when your opinions become quiet suggestions, when your needs sound like inconveniences, when your truth is delivered like a question, not a statement. I think maybe I might possibly feel like you stop using your voice, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've learned saying it costs too much. Every word is weighed against potential consequences. Every expression is filtered through their likely response. You become a ghost in your own life, translucent and silent. Revelation 16, the voice inside was always yours. You might think the whisper replaced your voice, that somewhere along the way, the real you was overwritten, drowned out, erased, that your damaged goods, forever changed, permanently broken, that the gaslighter won, that they successfully deleted the person you used to be. But that's not true. That's just another lie they planted, another seed of doubt designed to keep you small. Your voice never left. It was never destroyed, only buried, covered by layers of doubt, shame, and subtle control. Silenced not by force, but by repetition, like a river dammed, not dried up, still flowing somewhere beneath the surface, still carrying the same pure water it always did. Think about it this way. When you were a child, before anyone taught you to doubt yourself, you knew things. You knew when someone was being mean, even if they said they were just joking. You knew when something felt wrong, even if adults told you it was fine. You knew your own preferences, your own boundaries, your own truth. That child is still inside you. That knowing is still inside you. Buried, yes. Silenced, absolutely. But not erased, never erased. And now, as you begin to unearth it, you realize something powerful. The voice inside was always yours, and it's been waiting, patiently, fiercely, to be heard again. Waiting for you to remember that you are the author of your own story, the expert on your own experience, the only person qualified to speak for what you've lived through. This is the moment of reconnection, of remembering, of coming home to yourself after a long, painful exile. You begin to speak small truths. You say no without a 5-minute explanation. You notice when someone crosses a line, and instead of swallowing it, you name it. You trust your gut again, even when others question it. It feels foreign at first, like learning to walk again after a long illness, like speaking a language you haven't used in years. But every time you speak your truth, you're not inventing something new. You're resurrecting something ancient, something that belonged to you before anyone taught you to doubt it, before anyone convinced you that their version of you was more accurate than your own lived experience. Your voice was never theirs to take. They just convinced you to put it away for safekeeping. Now it's time to take it back. Revelation 17, redrawing the boundaries. The moment you reclaim your voice, something else becomes clear. The lines that used to protect you have faded. Your no has been softened into a maybe. Your stop has become silence. Your limits have become suggestions. Your emotional borders, once firm, have been worn down by years of whispers, like coastlines eroded by persistent waves. But now, with your voice returning, comes a sacred responsibility to redraw the boundaries, not out of vengeance, not out of spite, but out of truth, out of love for the person you're becoming. Because healing isn't just about speaking, it's about choosing where your voice begins and where others must end. It's about reclaiming the geography of your own life. Gaslighting thrives in boundaryless environments. It needs access to your doubts, your forgiveness, your over-explaining, your need to be liked. Every time you moved your line to make someone else more comfortable, you gave up a piece of your emotional land. You became a refugee in your own territory. But now, it's time to redraw the map, not in pencil, in permanent ink, with landmarks that can't be moved and borders that can't be negotiated away. Revelation 18, when the whisper returns. It will, sooner or later, in a different voice, a different face, a different context. Not all gaslighters come in the form of a partner. Sometimes it's a boss, a friend, a parent, a colleague, even your own inner critic, reactivated by a familiar phrase or triggered by an old pattern. You're overthinking again. Why are you always like this? You're being too sensitive. That's the whisper returning, testing your new walls, pressing against your voice, probing for weaknesses in your newfound strength. And the question isn't if it comes back, it's what you'll do when it does. The danger isn't in hearing it, it's in believing it. That's the test of healing. You don't become invincible, you become discerning. You develop immunity, not armor. You feel the tremor, but you don't freeze. You hear the echo, but you don't mistake it for your own thought. You recognize the familiar pattern, but refuse to dance the old dance. The whisper may return, but it won't find a home in the new house you've built for yourself. Revelation 19, the voice that can't be unheard. Once it returns, it never leaves. Not the whisper, the truth. That voice inside you. The one that says, no, this isn't right. The one that speaks in goosebumps and tight throats and sudden chills of knowing. The one that remembers what healthy feels like. That voice was always there, buried beneath layers of confusion, repression, kindness that cut, and silence that stung. But now, it's awake. And once your truth speaks, once it's been heard, it can't be unheard. This is the shift, the moment where you stop trying to make sense of their story and start rewriting your own. You stop defending your memories, your emotions, your boundaries. You simply trust them. You stop seeking external validation for your internal experience. The gaslighter's voice may echo, but it no longer overpowers, because your voice has volume now. It has history. It has a home inside you that no one else gets to redesign, redecorate, or relocate. You become fluent in your own language again. You remember the sound of your own laughter, the weight of your own opinions, the texture of your own truth. And once you remember, really remember, no whisper can make you forget again. Final revelation, the voice that roared back. You've just taken a journey through silence, through whispers, echoes, and forgotten truths. You now understand the anatomy of gaslighting, not as a dramatic explosion, but as a slow erasure. Not a monster with claws, but a whisper with timing. Not a predator with fangs, but a smile with poison. Not an obvious villain, but someone who convinced you that you were the problem while they slowly dismantled your ability to trust yourself. But most importantly, you've uncovered something far more powerful than any tactic ever used against you. Your own voice, your own truth, your own unshakable knowing that no amount of manipulation can ultimately destroy. You've remembered how the first tremble felt, how subtle it was, how easy it would have been to dismiss as nothing. How the dinosaur within you awoke not to defend you, but to keep you small, to keep you safe through surrender. You've seen how silence can punish louder than words, how kindness can wound deeper than cruelty, how over-apologizing can become survival, how love can be weaponized against the very person it claims to protect. You've witnessed the insidious process of reality erosion, the way doubt can be installed, like malware in your mental operating system. You've seen how evidence hoarding becomes necessary when your memory is no longer a safe place. How you can become emotionally homeless in your own life. And you've rediscovered what was never truly gone. The fossil of your truth, the bones of your boundaries, and the roar buried beneath years of suppression. That voice that says no, that recognizes wrongness, that refuses to apologize for existing. It was always there, waiting for you to remember its power. Now, let's be real. The whisper might return. From a partner, a parent, a boss, a friend, a colleague, even from inside your own head, where old patterns sometimes echo like ghosts in an abandoned house. But this time, it will find something different, not silence, not confusion, not compliance, but a presence, a knowing, a voice that says, I was there, I remember, and I choose me. The gaslighter might return with new tactics, new faces, new packages for the same old poison. They might come disguised as love, as help, as concern for your well-being. But now you have something you didn't have before, the ability to recognize the pattern, to trust your own experience, to know that your feelings are data, not drama. Because healing doesn't happen in silence, it happens in resonance. When one voice rises, it gives others permission to do the same. When you speak your truth, you create space for others to find theirs. When you break free from the gaslight nest, you light the way for others still trapped in their own cages, still wondering if they're crazy, still apologizing for existing. Your recovery becomes a lighthouse for others lost in the fog of manipulation. Your voice becomes proof that it's possible to find your way back to yourself, no matter how far you've traveled into the wilderness of someone else's reality. And remember, they tried to rewrite your story with whispers. They attempted to edit your reality with doubt, to delete your truth with confusion. But you're writing it back with a roar. Not the roar of rage, and though anger has its place and serves its purpose. Not the roar of revenge, though justice matters and accountability is necessary. But the roar of recognition, of knowing who you are, what you've survived, and what you're capable of becoming. The dinosaur inside you is no longer sleeping, but now it roars for you, not against you. It roars to protect your truth, not bury it. It roars to announce your presence, not your surrender. It roars to say, I am here, I exist, I matter, and my voice will not be silenced again. You are not a victim of whispers. You are a survivor of silence. You are a warrior who fought a battle that left no visible scars, but changed everything about how you see yourself and the world. And your voice, your true, authentic, unshakable voice, is the most powerful weapon against anyone who tries to convince you that you don't exist, that your reality isn't real, that your truth doesn't matter. Welcome back to yourself. The world has been waiting to hear what you have to say. And now that you remember how to speak, there's no whisper soft enough to silence you again.